Welcome to Confessions by Banana Ketchup. Freakiest experience of my life. So, about 15 years ago, I was living with my ex-girlfriend and my sister and her husband in an old house not far from town. Within the first few weeks of living there, strange things were happening regularly. Lights going out randomly, noises upstairs. At one point, one of the windows at the back of the house was cut, like someone went at it with a glass cutter trying to break in but gave up on it and left. Creepy stuff like that. That was bad enough, but things got pretty severe as time went on. One week in particular was crazy. The first thing that happened that week was on a Tuesday night. Everyone was working and I was home alone watching TV when I noticed our cat was acting really weird. Backed into a corner and arched up like it was scared. When I went to get up, the electricity went in the house and it was pitch black inside. The second that happened, I heard really loud footsteps running down the stairs to me. I got up and braced myself for whatever it was, but there was nothing. I gathered myself and went outside to the front garden to check if other houses' lights were on, but my house was the only one that was dark. I went to the fuse box and reset the trip switch and all was back to normal. A few days later, think it was a Tuesday, we were all in the sitting room watching a movie with a pizza, lights on and a good atmosphere in the house, when out of nowhere, a massive bang happens upstairs. We go up to check it out and I went into our bedroom and saw my bedside table in the middle of the room. But the worst and last thing that happened to me was on a Saturday night. I'll never forget this. It still gives me chills when I think about it. We go to bed, everything normal, watch a bit of movie and fall asleep. I woke up facing the wall and glanced at the alarm clock. It read 3:13. I turn over to go back asleep and I see my ex standing in the middle of the room. Confused, I begin to sit up to ask her what's up, but as I start to sit up, I realize my ex is asleep in bed next to me. A surge of fear runs through me and I'm frozen to the spot. My eyes adjust and I barely make out the figure. A young girl in a night dress with a cartoon character on it, soaking wet with her head down looking at the floor. I can still hear the water drop on the carpet and I'm just sitting there ducking shocked. Couldn't believe it. After a couple of seconds, it kind of melts away, like fades out of sight. Got up, turned on the lights and tried to tell myself that it was just a night terror or something, but the problem with that was there was a goddamn wet patch where she was standing. Moved out shortly after that. Can still picture her to this day though. Goddamn creepiest thing I've ever experienced. Thank you, Eighth Immortal, the author. The Blue Man, 2016. Hey guys, I don't usually post things, but after diving down the rabbit hole, which is this app, especially this area of the app, I was reminded of a specific paranormal situation that I guess I repressed. To give you context, it was 2016 and I was 16 years old. The month was either June or July. I can't really pinpoint exact dates, however, I remember it was summer break from school. I remember hearing from my mom that my uncle was being admitted to the hospital for some health problems I can't remember. He had a lot, but ultimately this specific situation wasn't life-threatening. Still, my mom wanted to visit him in the hospital and she wanted my brother and I to accompany her. Being 16, on a 3-month vacation from school and not wanting to be surrounded by sick people, you can imagine I was quite unhappy that I was being forced to go. Of course, I did for her sake. The hospital we visited was the oldest hospital in our specific city, one of the oldest ones in our region of Texas. The hospital was built in 1930s, predating World War II. I remember hearing that the hospital was constructed but was forced to open early due to the new London, Texas school explosion. An explosion where 295 people, school students and teachers, died due to a natural gas leak. Anyways, whenever my mom, brother and I arrived to the hospital, we were advised by the front desk that my uncle was being held in a room in the oldest wing of the hospital. The hospital was built how I assume a lot of hospitals are that were constructed 70-80 years ago, old in the center but with a shell of modern buildings wrapping around. The deeper we went into the hospital, the older and less renovated the walls, ceilings and floors looked. It felt as if you'd walked back into the 70s. A lot of the rooms in the oldest wing were not being used. If they were storage for an old hospital baths or outdated furniture from the waiting rooms. The only reason I digress from my story is I want you to realize how this set all of our moods. It was like we had walked into one of those haunted houses that mimics an abandoned hospital, except, you know, this was still functional. So we got to a more populated part of the old wing where we could take an elevator to his floor. After doing so, we walked into a hallway where my mom, brother and I began walking to my uncle's room. When we exited the elevator, we briefly passed a dimly lit waiting room and several closed hospital room doors. I wasn't paying much attention to anything out of just being weirded out by entire setting still be so glum. However, as we walked past this waiting room, I noticed a figure of a man. He was standing in the corner of the room. I remember I thought it was odd that he was standing because there were at least 6 chairs that were unoccupied due to him being the only one there. Though that thought ceased to exist as I immediately noticed the color of the man's face. The dude was blue, like it wasn't dark blue, his skin was a very pale blue. I don't know how to describe it, so I went ahead and picked the closest color I could remember here. I was terrified, completely off put that this man had blue skin. However, in my mind, I didn't think it was paranormal at first. Immediately I thought that this man had a type of skin disease or problem that turned his skin blue. He seemed so real, not like a ghost. I remember I only looked at him for at least 10 seconds, but I could see his face, and I could make out his clothing, and even that he was wearing jewelry on one hand. The hand was also blue, just so you know. His clothes were like really strange. He was wearing a suit of some sort, except the suit looked very old. It didn't look like a modern design. It looked like a stock trader fit out of the 40s. Whenever we got to my uncle's room, I asked my mom and brother if they'd seen the man, to which neither of them said they had. I was completely weirded out that I was the only one. My brother and I walked back out of the room to see if we could still see this person. Whenever we walked down the hallway, we saw him, in the same place as last time, no expression on his face, just standing, as if he was waiting for someone. My brother and I walked back towards the elevator, and once there, we freaked out and expressed our complete disbelief on what we just saw, a dude in an old suit that was blue. We walked back to the room. While passing, this time I snuck a picture of the man with my cell phone. Once in the room, my brother and I expressed to my mom and uncle about how weird the experience was. And when they expressed their disbelief, I showed them the picture of the man. They were shocked. My mom's immediate reaction was to walk outside and get a glimpse for herself. As she did, I walked with her. We peeked our heads out of the doorframe and we are greeted with the man's figure about 4 or 5 doors down away from us, resting his back against the hospital door. The man had moved closer to my uncle's room after we walked past. I was completely creeped out, and we went back into the room and shut the door. 50 minutes or so had passed and we decided to go down the lobby to leave. We didn't see the man outside in the hallway, he was gone. We were all pretty spooked about that experience, and I'm not sure what to make of it exactly. I wrote this with a much dramatic emphasis as possible to make sense for whoever reads it, but honestly, I've never written any sort of story like this before. Hopefully I don't sound like subreddit no sleep. Basically, I saw someone who had a blue face and was wearing very old clothing. I'm not a strong believer in ghosts or paranormal activity, but I really had never experienced anything that gave me the creeps that bad. Also, if it was an actual human who just looked different than you and I, that could make more sense than a demonic blue person. I don't know. After that incident, my brother and mom and I stopped talking about it due to it being strange. You know when like you just can't make sense of something so you block it out? I guess we did that for a couple of years. I honestly hadn't even thought about it until about an hour ago after reading someone's post that was similar to this. Oh, and I don't have the photo anymore, sorry to not deliver. It was an old cell phone that I no longer have. The iCloud that was associated with the account also did not have it synced, sadly. I assume that's for the best. If you know anything on Blue Man folklore, please enlighten me. I'd love to know what I experienced, if it be paranormal. Thank you, Zakrai13, the author. Thank you for watching, everyone. If you already haven't, subscribe to this channel so you don't miss any new episodes. See you again soon, and until then, please, be safe.